Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Episode 119 of The Last Round. Welcome back after a fight between the pound-for-pound king in boxing, at least in my opinion. I think in a lot of people's opinion, he's the pound-for-pound king. I wouldn't argue, and a lot of people shouldn't. Between the pound-for-pound king, Saul Canelo Alvarez, and Turkey's Anthony Yildrim, who I know Mike was pretty pissed off because he doesn't know how he got this world title shot coming off a loss. But we'll dive into that. You don't have to give me your take yet, Mike. But once again, guys, thank you guys for listening. Whether this is the first time you're listening to The Last Round or the 130th, 140th, whatever. We appreciate it, whether you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Boxing Socials, YouTube, wherever you're at, however you're listening. We definitely appreciate it. Jumping right into it, fight reviews. This past Saturday, the 27th of February, from the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida. Miami, probably the biggest fight that city has gotten, the state of Florida has gotten in recent memory. On the zone, as I mentioned, the pound-for-pound king, Saul Canelo Alvarez, gets the third round stoppage over Anthony Yildrim and retains his WBC and WBA and Ring Magazine super middleweight world titles. All right, Mike, I'll let you start on this one. What'd you think?
Well, it kind of changed my mind eventually. I was kind of glad that he got him out of there early because I was working day shift, so I needed to get to bed early. So that was the only good part about him knocking him out in the 3 rounds. But on a more serious note, kind of a waste of time. I think going in there, we all kind of said that it was good. The fact that, he was made the mandatory for some, mad reason. He actually took it as an extra fight. Obviously, 8 to 10 weeks after fighting Callum Smith, he kind of threw us a bone, fought him now instead of waiting until May. And then obviously, hopefully fighting Billy Joe in May and then going on to fight Caleb Plant. I think even, I watched an interview with Mauricio Suleiman and he sort of said that they need to kind of look at their rankings. Obviously, Yildrim was thrown in there because he had that fight with Dirrell that was stopped on a cut. So they kind of gave him another chance, even though he was losing on points. So this kind of doesn't make much sense. But, at least he did admit that they need to look at their rankings. And, Anthony Yildrim was levels below Canelo Alvarez in this fight. He was either just shocked by the moment. He hardly threw any punches at all in those 9 minutes that he was actually in there. I don't know whether the occasion was too much, Canelo was too good, or maybe a combination of both. I thought it was a good call by Joel Diaz in the corner that, he kept talking to him. He was about to let him out, for the 4th round. He said something again to him, like, how was he feeling? And, Anthony Yildrim just wasn't really responding. And I think, Joel Diaz just did the right thing. And as much as, us as boxing fans like to see, fighters go in there, give a good account of themselves and, go out on the shield at the same time, I'm sure I speak for everybody when we also wish that they go home safe to their families. So as, disappointing as it was that we didn't get the knockout, at least, he lived to fight another day. And, there wasn't anything wrong with him. He didn't have to go home in an ambulance. So Joel Diaz did the good thing, I think.
You mentioned that it was kind of a waste of time. And it's not that I don't understand that point of view, but I disagree just because he is... I think us as boxing fans already appreciate when a fighter is active a lot more than once a year, like a Gary Russell Jr., or twice a year, like some other fighters, like especially in the PBC or even Canelo at one point, for a long time. I don't necessarily look at it as a waste of time because he just fought a couple months ago, like 3 months ago or something like that. And now he's scheduled again to fight in about 3 months against probably the toughest test since the Triple G fight, the first fight. So I mean, can we realistically expect somebody like Canelo Alvarez to fight some of these biggest names or the biggest competitors between 160 and 168? I mean, for that matter, at this moment, 168 at every single fight. I mean, everybody knows Canelo is cash cow and they want big money. They want big money and then they want a lot of time to train. I mean, sometimes a lot of these boxers, they're kind of prima donnas and they want, I don't have enough time to train or I want more money. I mean, like everybody, deserves to get paid and train as hard and as well for a big fight like this. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's just a political side that comes into the business side like this, which affects the selection of opponents. So I think Canelo and his team and Eddie Hearn knew, okay, we got Callum Smith. He got his belt. That was a good fight because he was a world title. I mean, even though he beat Callum Smith, he kind of dominated him. Callum Smith had a title, so you can't dispute that, and Canelo beat him for it. So and gave him his first professional loss. He comes back later and 3 months later and fights Anthony Yildrim. I agree. I don't think anybody can dispute that Yildrim did not belong in there. He did not belong in there. He was coming off a loss. He was losing on points to Dirrell in 2019. The WBC has mentioned in prior interviews, and probably even this last week, that Canelo requested Yildrim as the opponent. It wasn't that he was a mandatory. Like realistically, how many fighters, maybe people too, if you include promoters, managers, and stuff like that, depending on the power they have, how many fighters, and you could probably count them on one hand, maybe two hands, have the power to request an opponent like that, and if it's anybody, it's going to be Canelo. One, because he's Mexican. The WBC is obviously a Mexican organization. I mean, obviously they're worldwide. I want to take that back, strike that. They're worldwide, but they're based in Mexico. They're Mauricio Suleiman is obviously a Mexican, and they obviously like their Mexican fighters. There's nothing wrong with that. And we see it. All these sanctioning bodies, they're all have their dealings and everything. But I think in terms of the WBC granting this request for Canelo, and you tell me if you agree or not, but if you kind of remember, the boxing fans who've obviously been following the sport for quite a few years can remember when Canelo and the WBC had their little rift back and forth a couple years ago. I believe it's when Canelo beat Cotto for the middleweight championship of the world, even though they fought like at 156 pounds or something like that. And then the WBC, within like that month or 2 months after that, tried to order Canelo to fight Triple G next. And Canelo said no. He was like, I'm not going to let some organization dictate my career on what I can and can't do. Well, yeah, I mean, it would have been a great fight, but I think Canelo, and at that time Golden Boy and his team, knew, okay, he needs to get used to that weight. He needs to fight other guys who are big like that to get used to it before he fights the biggest killer in that division, which I understand that. And then the WBC kind of dug their hole because then Canelo kind of dropped his belt. He's like, all right, take your belt. I don't need it. And so they didn't get along for, I don't know, a year or two or, quite a while. And obviously the WBC wasn't getting a cut of his purse. I mean, obviously the more money you make, the bigger the cut is, in terms of the percentage of the sanctioning fee or for the sanctioning body or what have you. So when they quote unquote kissed and made up, obviously the ball has been in Canelo's court. It's not that the WBC isn't running things. It's Canelo's running things. When you become the star, like Mayweather, Canelo, Anthony Joshua, guys like that, Tyson Fury, these sanctioning bodies, I don't want to say all of them. I don't want to generalize all of them, but, I think we all know the ones that do it. They're going to adapt and then figure out a way to make you happy. And this was a WBC making Canelo happy, giving him this, I guess, tune-up bout, if you want to call it that. I mean, and for a lot of people who don't know, I'm sure a lot of people who listen to our podcast know, Anthony Yildrim has been a sparring partner for Canelo in the past. So, maybe it was also a way of Canelo rewarding him. Like, hey, man, thanks for all this work you've given me over the years. I'll give you a payday. Biggest payday of your career. Not most likely. I'm sure of it. So, I'm just glad that he fought, and they announced, how often do you announce a fight, like officially announce a fight within 5-10 minutes of that win on that night? I think the last time Canelo announced a fight like this was when he fought Triple G, when he defeated Chavez. That was in 2017. So 3-4 years ago. When he defeated Chavez, Triple G came out, they put the graphics up, and it was going to happen in September or something like that. So this is the second time that he's done that. They announced Billy Joe Saunders in May. So I think I was cool with the fight. It didn't surprise me. I said Yildrim was probably going to be stopped in the first 6 rounds. And when I was watching it, I actually said, he's going to get stopped in the third. Obviously the third finished, and it was in between the third and the fourth, but I'm cool with it. I understand you saying it's a waste of time, but I don't necessarily agree with that, just because we are getting a great fight in May, what should be a great fight in May, and it's already been officially announced. So, I'm cool with it. They give us this just to kind of put Canelo out there and put a spectacle and, kind of keep him active and keep his profile up. And then he fights one of the best guys he's ever going to fight in his career in May. What do you think?
Yeah, I understand, it's good just to get him out of there. But kind of what I meant by it was a waste of time. It was a waste of time as a mandatory, because he'd never beat anybody to get that high in the rankings to be a mandatory. Every time he stepped up, he lost.
Would you really categorize it as a mandatory?
Technically, they said it was. They kept quoting like, "Oh yeah, he's fighting him because he's his mandatory." Canelo's done a great thing. Getting his mandatory out of the way. I think that was just all PR spin, because the WBC said this was Canelo's request. There's video of Mauricio Suleiman saying that. So I think it was just a PR spin by DAZN and everybody, who's involved in the broadcast to say, oh yeah, Canelo, it makes Canelo look better to the casual audience. Like, oh yeah, his mandatory. Hardcore boxing fans, like, our listeners obviously know the truth behind that. They know that the WBC granted the request. So, but the casual fans, who a lot of casual people, Canelo is one of the few fighters I think everybody knows in boxing who has casual viewers. So the casual fans who are watching these broadcasts leading up to the fight, or they watch the fight and they see DAZN or any of these other, television or online productions saying like, oh yeah, this is mandatory. Canelo does a good job of getting his mandatory out of the way, blah, 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 blah. It makes Canelo look like, oh, okay, well, he's giving this guy a chance. Like, this guy worked his way up to that spot and Canelo's getting him out of the way, etc. That's not what happened. That's not what happened. So, even though they're saying they're trying to promote it as a mandatory, was obviously very misleading. That's not the case. It was just Canelo wanted something. He was like, I want to fight somebody. Let me fight this guy. Obviously if the guy probably didn't ever spar with Canelo in the past and maybe give him some good work and kind of train with him and all that stuff, Canelo wouldn't be giving him a payday like that. That's my thing, No, yeah, I agree. When the fight was made, I was kind of thinking to myself, I was like, that's a kind of random mandatory opponent. And then when I remembered and saw the pictures of him, sparring with him, I was like, okay, he's just giving him a nice little thank you check for, probably getting some good work in. And, Canelo looked good. When his entrance was nearly as long as the fight, that tells you something, right?
Yeah. But, what did you expect? Especially after the first entrance, when he fought Callum Smith, Eddie Hearn knows that he has to keep that standard up. He does. Eddie Hearn is this is the craziest, scene in boxing at the moment, because Canelo was with Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy for so many years. And then they get a DAZN deal, and then the two major promoters at DAZN are Matchroom, and Golden Boy. And obviously, Eddie Hearn told us when we interviewed him in Phoenix after the Chavez-Jacobs fight that their budget at Matchroom was bigger for DAZN than Golden Boy. You know, like they were allotted more money, you know, more events and stuff like that. And a big bulk of the budget for Golden Boy was because of Canelo. And now Canelo left and the budget kind of transferred to Eddie Hearn. And Eddie Hearn knows, I mean, like as a businessman, as a promoter, he had to make him feel like a king. I mean, come on, man. Like that's the most wildest entrance he's done in his career. That's the wildest entrance he's ever done. Like, but you know, the guy likes that. He likes that. I mean, I saw an interview where Eddie Hearn said, I think on the day of the weigh-in, Eddie Hearn was wearing like a Gucci or Dolce & Gabbana like sweatsuit or something like that. And somebody asked him about that, and he was like, "Yeah, Canelo gave it to me." And they were like, "Well," and he was like, "Well," he's like, when his last fight against Cam Smith, he wore something like this on the day in the weigh-in or something, and then Eddie Hearn told him like, "Oh, that's a nice, nice outfit." And Canelo was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You want one?" And Eddie Hearn was like, "Oh no, you're not going to have one for me." He's like, "Yeah, I'll get you one." He's like, "Just wear it at the next fight." And he gave them to him last week, and he wore it. I mean, like, if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about that relationship, even though it's a fight-by-fight basis, you know, like, I don't think Canelo's going to go anywhere. As long as this keeps happening, and I'm assuming it works out okay. Maybe not, I don't know. But Eddie Hearn's going to be a part of his promotion, a part of his team, I think, from this point forward. Even if Canelo goes to like Showtime or for like a fight against Charlo or Fox or wherever, you know, I think he's going to bring Eddie Hearn along. He's going to say, "Hey, nah," he's like, "If you want to do business with me, you're going to include him." I think so. I think that's going to happen. I mean, what do you think?
I know it's kind of slightly different because Canelo's the pinnacle of the sport. But in comparison, and we're kind of talking about this earlier in the show than we kind of thought we would, look at the way that Teofimo Lopez was treated by Bob Arum, or the way that Crawford is probably a good one to pick. He's treated by Bob Arum.
Right.
You know, Eddie Hearn rolls the red carpet out for Canelo. I know it's slightly different because Canelo generates all that money, and but at the same time, Teofimo Lopez could, the way that he could be that sort of guy in the future. He's a promoter's dream. He wears, he always wears the Disney clothes and stuff like that, probably to try and get sponsorship from Disney. And because he's on ESPN and those two are partners, he speaks well, he looks well, he knows what to do wearing the potential number one picks in the college. He wears their shirts afterwards. He does the flips. He does a lot of media. He gets those sensational knockouts. But yet Bob Arum goes and says the wackiest things about, like he can go somewhere else and he's not worth this, he's not worth that. Where Eddie Hearn, on the other hand, he rolls the red carpet out literally for Canelo to try and get him to stay, to make him feel like $1 million, something that obviously wasn't happening when he was with Golden Boy. So really is, it's night and day in the way that they both act. And I don't know whether it's because, Eddie Hearn always keeps saying in recent interviews how like he's, an employee for the fighter. Whereas back in the day, I think when Bob really hit the scene, the fighters were, an employee for him. He kind of told them what to do, who they were fighting, how much they were going to get paid, where it's turned on its head. And I think, maybe Bob's that kind of stubborn in his old age that he's not kind of realized that it's the other way around now.
Right. I think that's what it is. Like, I think Bob Arum's been around so long, he just doesn't care anymore. And obviously Top Rank is a successful business. I think if you look at the overall aspect or the overall business aspect of the current major promoters right now, Top Rank is probably the best, the most well-off financially, I would think, like in terms of sustainability. I mean, who else would it be?
I would say Matchroom.
I think Matchroom is close second, but I think if you really had to pick one side or the other, I would think it's Top Rank. I would think it's Top Rank. I mean, just because a majority of their fights are based in the U.S., obviously the money is in the U.S. That's why everybody fights over here, Vegas, New York, L.A., and stuff like that. So and they have an ESPN deal with the biggest sports network in the United States. So I think Top Rank would edge Matchroom just a little bit in terms of an overall business aspect. So I mean, like you said, Bob Arum just doesn't give a crap anymore. You know, he doesn't care. He's been around a long time. He's like, I've seen these guys come and go. Like, he knows De La Hoya did it to him, Mayweather, Mikey Garcia. He doesn't care. He doesn't care.
I give him one thing though. If he genuinely does believe, and I'm sure he does, that the Teofimo Lopez, Kambosos fight is only worth, 2.5 million. I'm sure he has very clever, intellectual people that, guesstimate how much this is going to, make in terms of revenue and stuff like that. They've been doing it for, 50 odd years or whatever it is. Then if that's what he generally believes, then that's what he bids. He's not going to put the fight on just to lose money.
Right. No, you're right. You're right. I mean, in terms of that, like, look at it this way. Like you said, I agree with it. He probably has a team or, or maybe he knows the business where they determine like, okay, this is the estimate to what this fight's going to make, based on the popularity, the ratings, past ratings, stuff like that. That's all very accurate. So in comparison to that, obviously you mentioned, we were talking about Lopez here. Triller obviously outbid Top Rank, Matchroom, in the fight to get Kambosos. So he's going to be fighting on Triller, which is Mike Tyson's app in a sense. I mean, there's a 95% certainty, and maybe they've already announced it, like the Ryan Kavanaugh, who's like the CEO, but I'm not sure. There's going to be YouTubers and celebrities and singers involved in that card, which is how they're going to get their money back or make some type of profit. Whereas Top Rank doesn't have or doesn't want to do those types of events. So they wouldn't include YouTubers or, or celebrities. It's not they don't want to include celebrities. They just like Triller with Mike Tyson there, and they've already done it once, and Snoop Dogg was a part of it and stuff like that. They're going to use that media arm of them to bring the YouTubers in to get their fans, their, younger generation fans, Instagram, Facebook and all that stuff, YouTube, and get some celebrities in, bring Snoop Dogg back on commentary. Obviously everybody thought he was kind of entertaining. Maybe bring Mike Tyson in to watch and give some post-fight or something like that.
Tyson will fight on it.
Yeah, probably.
It'll be Tyson. The main event will be Tyson Holyfield.
Probably. I completely agree with that. I think that's a very valid point. I think that's what's going to happen. But that's how they're going to make their money. That's why they were able to pay to say, okay, we can pay $6 million for this fight right now because we're going to make $30 million on this fight or whatever. Probably even more, depending. I mean, they did over 1 million buys with Tyson.
1.6, I think.
Something like that. That's ridiculous. But it was at $49.99. But even still, that's still a ton of money. So their business strategy in that regard, whether people hate it or love it, that's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do, and that's how they're going to make their money back. Whereas Top Rank, if Top Rank was in that business spectrum like that, maybe they can offer Teofimo Lopez a little bit more money. But because they're trying to live within their means, they're trying to operate within their means, that's probably what Bob Arum is looking at this fight and saying, yeah, this fight's only worth $2 to $2.5 million. That's what I think. So, but I mean, so people say like, oh, they overbid on this fight and stuff like that. I mean, from our perspective as boxing fans and following the sport, following the business side, I absolutely. But if they make their money back and they do over 1 million buys again, that's irrelevant. So, and I mean, and this fight is obviously going to be on pay-per-view. Lopez Kambosos wasn't going to be on pay-per-view on ESPN. It would have been either on the app, on the ESPN Plus app, or on regular ESPN. So I don't know. Like we'll see how that relationship goes. But I think, like you said, it was a good little comparison there that Eddie Hearn and Canelo and Bob Arum and Teofimo Lopez, it's kind of the rift that Lopez and Bob Arum are going at it right now. And then Golden Boy and Canelo were going at it, and obviously they separated, and then now Canelo's with Eddie Hearn in a sense, but who knows? But kind of going back to Canelo really quick as we wrap up talking about his fight. I'm kind of glad that they announced Billy Joe Saunders right away. I was really happy about that they announced it, like I said, within 5-10 minutes of him winning with the graphics and everything. I was like, oh, wow, this is official. This is legit. I thought they would have waited like a month, but they did it. They did it. So who knows? But obviously we'll talk about that fight as it gets closer to May. I think it's May 8th on the Zone, but it should be a good fight. Hopefully it is, but we'll see. Also on the card, McWilliams Arroyo gets a 5th round TKO over Abraham Rodriguez and gains the WBC interim world flyweight title. Abraham Rodriguez is actually a substitution opponent, right? Julio Cesar Martinez was actually supposed to be the opponent or supposed to be in this matchup, but didn't he break his hand or something like that?
Very odd. He said that the announcement came out saying he broke his hand sparring, and I was thinking, well, why on earth was he sparring? Like, fight week. And then it turned out that he'd broken it before he'd even got there. And then, even during the final press conference on the Thursday, his hand was broken then. But they did the press conference and, supposedly he wanted to go for a scan just to make sure. And
do you think it was something else? Do you think that was just an excuse just to but there was something else going on behind the scenes?
I don't know, because he pulled out last year as well, didn't he? They were supposed to fight, I think it was last August or something like that. He got injured and then, he pulled out again for this one. Full respect to, Williams Arroyo and, Abraham Rodriguez for stepping in on literally, 12 hours notice. And obviously McWilliams for accepting, a new opponent, a completely different styled opponent as well. It's sort of like just notice, obviously WBC made it a interim world flyweight title fight, which was good. And obviously, hopefully third time lucky, we see Julio Cesar Martinez against McWilliams Arroyo, because obviously, Martinez is an exciting fighter. I'm sure, it seems like legit injuries because of the warrior that he is in the ring. I'm sure there's nothing about him, faking it or anything like that since he's got injured, twice. Because obviously, if he doesn't fight, he doesn't get paid. So...
Right. Here's an interesting question. So Abraham Rodriguez obviously came in at essentially 12 hours notice to be the substitution opponent. Obviously, we've seen that before. We see that a lot, especially during COVID, where the opponent kind of backs out or gets COVID or gets injured or just has to back out for some type of reason. And then a backup opponent slides in. How much do you think they pay, like promoters pay these backup opponents just to stay ready? Like, hey, stay ready just in case. Like, because they're not, I'm sure some of them are like, okay, yeah, I'll stay ready. But like technically to make them whole, to make them say like, hey, look, I'll pay you and your team this amount just to stay ready, just in case we need you. How much do you think on average they get?
Yeah, obviously it just depends on the class of fighter and their usual purse, I guess. But I'm sure they could probably get a good amount, I'm sure they get like a standby amount. And then, hey, if you're actually called up, to the big leagues on the night, I'm sure you get a full purse. So
right.
It's like some people who turn from, pros to just full-time sparring partners. They just, earn that much money, sparring consistently, week in, week out, that they do that instead. But obviously I'm sure that's a hard living, taking that wear and tear. So.
Oh yeah, big time. But we'll see. Hopefully Martinez comes back and third time's a charm. We'll see how that goes. Also moving on, also on that card, is it Zhilei Zhang? Zhilei Zhang fights to a majority draw against Jerry Forrest. This is a pretty back and forth entertaining fight. I was pretty entertained by it. What'd you think? Literally
a story of two halves. Zhilei Zhang, I think it was the first 4 rounds, just went in there, dropped him several times. Looked like he was going to make it an early night, punched himself out, just literally punched himself out, gave, Jerry Forrest chances to come back in, and he took up the pretty much the remaining 6 rounds, which was what he needed because he was dropped. I think it was in the first, second, and the third. And managed to scrape a majority draw. after that performance, I think he's a long way away from deserving a fight with Anthony Joshua over in China that they were, trying to position him to. If anything, he needs to get back in there with Jerry Forrest, prove himself during that fight. And I don't know, maybe they need to wrap him in cotton wool if they're going to make that big fight over in China, because he's very rough around the edges. He's definitely, a diamond that needs to be polished.
I wonder how many people tuned in from China to watch him.
I'm sure he's probably a big draw because obviously, how many Chinese heavyweights do they have? So
yeah, exactly. So especially if his name's being mentioned with Anthony Joshua, you never know. But yeah, that was definitely entertaining. But at the end of that fight, the judges had the fight 95-93 for Forrest, and 2 cards of 93-93, which produced the majority draw. So, I'm sure they're going to run that back, I would think, but who knows? Moving on, Diego Pacheco remains undefeated, gets the 8-round unanimous decision win over Rodolfo Gomez Jr. What do you think about Pacheco's win?
Good. I mean, he looked good. This is obviously a step up for him, fighting Rodolfo Gomez, who came in obviously with a winning record of 14-5, 1 draw. But it was good to see Pacheco actually get some rounds. He mixes his punches up well. He's pretty snappy. He's tall for the weight. I think he kind of, he's still young. He's going to grow into his body. He looks like a little bit on the, kind of the slim side. Could get a little bit more muscular, I would say. But he's solid. I like the way that he's got a good boxing IQ. He doesn't really rush things. He takes his time, which is good for someone so young. You can see he's obviously had a good pedigree, and they're moving him along slowly but surely. And obviously he's from the Southern California area, so we're going to back our boys, right?
I guess not all the time, but
that's true.
In that regard, I understand. Also on the card, Marc Castro, who's been on the show in the past, gets a 2nd-round TKO over John Moraga. Castro gets the 2nd win of his career. They mentioned on the broadcast out of anybody, and I'm sure it's happened before, I just don't remember, but this guy in his first 2 professional bouts fights on Canelo cards. That's a pretty big win already, just for his publicity and the eyeballs he gets. What do you think?
We know, obviously, we spoke to Eddie on the day that Eddie actually, spoke to him in Phoenix.
Probably signed him in Phoenix too.
Yeah, so we know that obviously Eddie had said that obviously he wanted to come over here. He wanted to do what he did in England and, try to sign up a lot of the big name amateurs that could kind of, hit the scene like he did with, all the Olympians that he did with Matchroom in the UK. And he said that he spoke to a lot of people around the amateur scene, and all of them had told him, sign Marc Castro. So I'm sure that he's putting a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of promotion behind Castro so he can get in there. And so far he he looks good. He understands the social media side of things, and he's obviously gone in there. He's 2-0 so far, but he's obviously had ready-made opponents. But yeah, like you say, there's a huge push behind him. So hopefully, Castro is working away behind the scenes, and it's a lot of pressure on young shoulders.
He looked better this time, though. Yeah, he looked a lot. You can definitely tell that he improved from the first fight.
No, that's true. Yeah, he did look good. Again, obviously his opponent fell out. He ended up facing, John Mayorga, who was, now 1-3. People may recognize the name. He was a former UFC fighter. He took it on a very short notice, and obviously got blown away by Marc Castro. But at the minute, he's doing exactly what he should do. He's being given food, and he just goes in there, eats it up, and kicks him out the ring. So I would say he'll probably get a good handful of kind of gimme fights, and then when he steps up, we'll kind of see what he's made of. But so far, he's doing the right things.
Yeah. I'm telling you, I think I've seen a couple social media posts since he began fighting, especially since, like you said, on social media, he starts posting a lot. I think he's kind of trying to do the Ryan Garcia thing about posting a lot, which I understand because I think they know each other and they've probably sparred together and stuff like that. But I think at one point where he posted something where he was doing some type of exercise, and Bleacher Report picked it up. Yeah, I think when he was blindfolded or something like that. And Bleacher Report, which is obviously a big sports outlet out here in the United States, they picked it up and they put it on their social handles and stuff like that. So a lot of casual fans or non-boxing fans, sports fans, saw him. And I remember people started saying, like, is that Elon Musk? Is Elon Musk boxing now? Like, and I never thought about it like that. I looked at him, I was like, they kind of have similar characteristics. I would honestly, obviously he won't use his name or use it for anything, but like, if I were him, I would find a way to kind of embrace that or kind of use that. Because if Elon Musk ever tweets his name out or acknowledges him or something like that, I mean, that's huge for publicity. That's huge for publicity. They
posted something one time about like stay tuned or something, like they were going to do something together. But that was
really?
That was a while ago. I haven't checked since, and I haven't seen anything. Nothing's popped up. So I don't know whether it was due to COVID, but he did post something about kind of doing some kind of collaboration.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, didn't say what it was.
That's pretty funny, honestly.
That's a hell of a platform, right?
Hell yeah, that's a hell of a platform. If your name's associated with him, who knows? But I could see Elon Musk kind of maybe acknowledging him in a tweet or something one day. And he has millions and millions of followers. So obviously, it'd be great for Castro's career. So I'm sure Castro's going to come back in May on the Canelo card, on the Canelo Billy Joe Saunders card. That seems like the plan right now, since he fought on the Count Smith card, now on the Anthony Yildrim, and now Billy Joe Saunders. So you never know if Canelo stays on this trajectory 3 to 4 times a year, 4 times a year. Castro's going to be right there with him. So if that keeps happening, they're going to be coinciding parallel to each other. So we'll see. Rounding off that card, Kyrone Davis making his professional debut and gets the first win of his career as a second-round TKO over Lester Brown. What did you think about Davis's pro debut?
He looked very, very good.
That's what I saw. Yeah, a lot of people were talking about that. He looked pretty good. I didn't catch this fight, but I saw some other people on boxing Twitter who were saying that he looked pretty good.
Yeah, I don't think he'll have any trouble coming from the amateur scene to the pros. And, when he's been surrounded by like people like Terence Crawford and stuff like that since turning pro, and, they obviously can give him advice and, what to do. And very good. You could see at such a young age of only been, 22, his boxing IQ is incredible. He picks his punches great. He had the guy hurt a couple of times and he didn't, just jump on him and, just throw wild punches. He's cool, calm, collected. And, he could be fast-tracked. I don't think he needs a ton of these gimme fights. He looks the real deal, yeah.
Right. Yeah, so I'm definitely excited to see him. I'm sure he'll pop up again on the Canelo card in the Billy Joe Saunders fight. Don't be surprised about that. Him and Castro are probably going to be right there. So we'll see how that works out. Also, this past Saturday from the Shrine Exposition Center in Los Angeles, Anthony Dirrell and Kyrone Davis fight to a split draw, PBC fight. I believe this was on Showtime. What do you think about this fight?
I mean, I wasn't overly impressed, but I was reading, the stuff today, obviously, when I was making the show notes, and it was completely split on the internet as well. Some people were saying how it was a tactical fight, really good to watch.
What?
Superb skills by both fighters. And then other, media outlets were saying, it was absolute trash. People thought Dirrell had already retired. Kyrone Davis was more of a gatekeeper or journeyman. So in my humble opinion, I wasn't overly impressed by Dirrell. Kyrone Davis, this was a massive step up for him. Dirrell really should have been levels and levels above. Kyrone Davis had gone from fighting really nobody's, most people he fought had like multiple losses and, they were like 10-6, records like that. To then jump in there and, this was a WBC eliminator for the winner of Anthony Dirrell and Canelo.
That's not gonna matter.
Well, you never know after what the WBC did with Yildrim.
This isn't gonna matter. Like no. This is not gonna. Canelo is not gonna fight any of these guys.
I hope not.
He's not. And the WBC, the WBC is just creating temporary happiness for these promoters. So they tell Al Heyman, PBC, oh, yes, this is a WBC eliminator. So that way this winner will be in a mandatory spot to face Canelo or whatever.
Well, it's like the Dillian White, you're like WBC eliminator.
Exactly.
WBC final eliminator. They just like, oh, that was an eliminator. I didn't say it was the final eliminator. You've got another one to do. So they just make it up as they go along.
Exactly. So I mean, all these sanctioning bodies have their negative doors that they go in and out of, so to speak. But I mean, I think Dirrell posted something on social media kind of saying that he wants Canelo, or he mentioned Canelo's name, or he tagged Canelo or something.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
I'd get in there. What was it? Yildrim got 2.5 billion, I believe. I'd get in there and throw him up.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. He's set for life. Set for life. But Dirrell, I mean, and it's a realistic fan, hardcore boxing fan, knows that Canelo will not fight any of these guys. He won't.
Dirrell needs to retire unless the WBC are trying to, for some reason, pay him back for consistently fighting under their banner and trying to place him into a Canelo payday to say thank you. He needs to retire. He's really is a shadow of what he used to be. He was already the second best Dirrell. His brother was the better fighter,
right?
And Dirrell lost his last fight to Benavidez and was in the wilderness for a year or 2 years, I think it was.
Right.
Comes back and gives this performance. Yeah,
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I don't know how this turns out. I don't think it turns out well. Like, does Dirrell and the PBC think that Canelo's going to pay them step-aside money every single time from this point forward? Like, do they really think Canelo's going to be like, oh, yeah, I'll pay you to step aside? Canelo's going to be like, I'm not going to pay you shit.
Adonis Stevenson style?
Yeah, that's not going to happen. And then the PBC, Al Heyman and Dirrell and his team are going to talk crap to the WBC. Be like, hey, what the hell? You said this was an eliminator. We're in the mandatory spot. We deserve a shot. I mean, it was a split draw, so I don't know how that works now. Maybe they're both the mandatory now. I don't know, or maybe they'll have them fight again. Who knows? But if it comes down to that, I mean, who is the WBC going to pay Al Heyman and Anthony Dirrell? Like, oh, here, sorry, Canelo just doesn't want to fight you here, but here's $100,000. I mean, who's gonna pay up? Canelo's not gonna pay up. He's going, I'm not gonna pay you guys anything. Like, you can wait in line. I am the world champion. I am the world title. These belts don't mean anything. Like, Canelo, his name is the world title. So I don't know. I think, like you said, it's WBC just trying to make them happy, but it's temporary happiness because eventually there's a rift that's going to arise from something like this, but who knows? Moving on. Is it Michael Rivera?
Michelle Rivera.
Michelle? Oh, are you sure?
I think so. Unless you pronounce it.
I don't know. I think it's Mitchell. I'm going to say Michael. Michael Rivera, 20-0, remains undefeated with the 8th round KO over Anthony Mercado Raices. Raices was down in, I hope I said that right, was down in rounds 2 and 6. What'd you think about this matchup?
One of those prospects that's kind of flying under the radar, Rivera, great fighter. It's from the Dominican Republic. He's heavy-handed, seems to put his punches together really, really well. I think he's great amateur schooling as well. Just hasn't really, for some reason, hit the scenes. He's, just quietly building up, a good resume. And he's one of those guys that could kind of come from nowhere and be the better prospect than the guys we were talking about before. So, kind of keep your eye out for him. Keep your eye out for him going forward. He's always built up a resume of, 20-0, heavy-handed. Sneaky good.
Also this past weekend from the Spark Arena in Auckland, New Zealand, Joseph Parker gets the 28th win of his career in a 12-round unanimous decision win over Junior Fa, who suffers the first loss of his professional career. And this was for the vacant WBO Oriental heavyweight. Is that real? Is that real? Oriental heavyweight title?
I didn't realize New Zealand was an Oriental country. But
that's a real title. I've never heard of that title. You know what? I'm typically not surprised when we see these alphabet titles and all these ones, but this is the first time I'm legitimately surprised in a while on these titles. The WBO Oriental Heavyweight title. What a name. What a name. Initially, this fight wasn't even supposed to be broadcasted on DAZN. This was actually on DAZN. And then I think DAZN tweeted out like, oh, we hear you. And Parker versus Fa will be broadcasted on DAZN. Am I right? I feel like I read that.
Yeah, I think it was the UK and Ireland because somebody reached out to us in the messages giving us abuse for not specifying that it was always on in the UK, but I think UK and Ireland were picked up at a later date. So,
that's right. That's right. We do have we had some people who were pretty pissed off at us because we didn't promote it. So we apologize. Even when we try to make everybody happy, we still make somebody unhappy.
Which is life, right?
I think that's a pretty good slogan for the last round. I'm gonna make some posters out of that. But who knows? But Parker, I think Parker's gonna get a pretty decent matchup after this. I think he's gonna get a pretty decent sized name.
Chisora?
Probably. That kind of makes sense.
That's what Eddie's been kind of... Obviously, that fight was supposed to happen last year due to COVID. It was called off because I think they wanted to put it in a stadium and obviously tried to have it as a pay-per-view card. And then obviously COVID hit. They couldn't make the purses. So, Parker fought this as kind of bragging rights for New Zealand. And Eddie was touching on, before the fight, if Parker won. And I believe he did a recent interview where he said that Chisora wants to fight in 8 weeks. So, he's hoping for a fast turnaround. And I think it's going on that card, April the 25th, Eddie's talked about doing a huge extravaganza pay-per-view card. And he was hoping to get this fight on there. He was also hoping to have, I think it was Josh Warrington against Kanzu. Obviously, that fell apart. But he's going to, have, for some reason, like a huge Easter card. So look forward to seeing what that is.
I mean, Chisora, obviously, he looked in his last fight, even though he lost against Usyk, like he was like a bull. He still showed that he has something left. But if Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua do fight, wouldn't you rather see Parker versus Usyk in the interim?
I do like Parker Chisora because Chisora in his last few fights has actually been in shape.
No, that's true. But I mean,
the punch output was there, which he used to lack.
But in terms of like competitive matchups, like age-wise, everything, in terms of where they're at in their careers, don't you see Usyk and Parker being a lot more competitive?
Weirdly, no.
Really?
Because I think Parker, in some of his fights, like when I was ringside, I can't think who he fought. He fought somebody. He came in out of shape, and he wasn't great. He was kind of slow. He lacked any movement. I don't know whether it's because obviously he's had a few, decent paydays that sometimes he kind of just turns up for the money and he doesn't get himself in great shape. In this fight, Parker wasn't outstanding. The guy that he fought didn't really throw very clean, punches, grabbed a lot. He didn't, in terms of an entertainment standpoint, with Joseph Parker being an ex-WBO heavyweight title of the year, and he's been in there and fought Dillian Whyte, he's been in and fought Anthony Joshua, he should have cleaned Junior Farr out, really. I
mean, based on just looking at these scores, 115, 113, 117, 111, and 119, 109, what is the actual accurate score here?
Well, yeah, because I think it was Nick Pete on the Fight Disciples said when he scored it, whilst he watched it, he had Junior Farr winning.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah,
that's interesting. I didn't catch this fight, but I just saw that Parker had got the win, which I expected. I think we expected.
I thought Parker, if he went in shape, and I think I said that last week, should have really have got him out of there. Junior Farr, he has an amateur career, an amateur pedigree. But in some of his fights, he's kind of just bullied people because he was so much bigger, so much heavier. He's not technically he's not great. The boxing fundamentals like clean, solid punches, he lacks.
Wow. Well, I mean, if Nick Pete of the Fight Disciples scored it for Fa, I mean, that's pretty telling.
Commissioner, the UFC commissioner, as they call him.
That's pretty telling. Now I definitely want to go back and watch this fight now, and really, just because seeing these scores, all three of them also at different spots, like you could tell every judge who scored it was watching something different, or they saw different things. And then if Nick Pete scores it for Fa, like this is one of those fights that you really want to watch and be like, okay, what the hell happened? Like what happened? So
I wouldn't go back. It's 36 minutes of your life
I know, but like just based on that, as boxing fans, that's intriguing to me. That's intriguing to me. I'm just saying, you know what? This is the last episode of the last. I'm just kidding. Moving on, fight previews this Friday, the 5th of March, from the H Arena in France and on ESPN Plus here in the United States. Tony Yoka, undefeated at 9-0, goes up against Joel Tambu-Djeko. Did I say that right?
Yeah, I was looking forward to you pronouncing that.
Joel Tambu-Djeko. I hope I said that right. 17-2-1 for the vacant EBU European heavyweight title. Another random alphabet title popping up there. What do you think about this one? I know Tony Yoka, his name's kind of in rumbles to, with other big names and stuff like that. What do you think about this matchup?
I think it's another matchup, with Tony Yoka changing trainer, going over to, Virgil Hunter over here in, California. I think he's just going to try and get a few, fights under his belt before he steps up. Yoka obviously beat, Joe Joyce, won the Olympic gold medal, has, notable successful amateur career. He beat Joseph Parker, Joe Joyce, Filip Hrgovic, who have all turned out to be, very good pros. So I think it's only a matter of time before we see, Tony Yoka in there with some bigger names. He obviously had, I think it was 2 years out away from the ring due to 3 missed drugs tests. So before long, I think it'd be good to really see, get him in there with Joe Joyce. And, Joe Joyce lost in the final to Tony Yoka. A lot of people actually had Joe Joyce winning that. So it'd be good to see that kind of rematch and see if, Joe Joyce can right that wrong. But at the minute, Joe Joyce is on a different path after getting that great win over Daniel Dubois. And it looks like it's only a matter of time before the fight against Usyk is made. So, later down the line, when Tony Yoka kind of catches up in terms of where he is in the, the world standings, it would be a good fight to do.
Absolutely. Also this weekend from the Dort Federal Event Center in Flint, Michigan on Fight TV pay-per-view. Claressa Shields, 10-0, the pound-for-pound female fighter in the world. I don't think you can argue with that. Goes up against the undefeated 17-0 Marie-Ava Dicaire. I hope I pronounced that right. For the WBC, IBF, WBO, and WBA super welterweight world titles. On paper, this looks, if you just look at the records and everything, it looks good. It looks good, but we've seen in Claressa Shields' 10 fights as a pro, everybody she's fought, she's overmatched them, So tell me one thing. Is this going to be any different from the previous 10 fights we've seen Claressa Shields in?
Probably not.
It's probably not. But, I think that just shows, even though the talent pool on the female fighting side is a lot less than obviously the men's side, somebody has to be number one. And Claressa Shields has shown that since she became a pro, that her talent is miles above anybody, I guess, below her. Obviously
it's just disappointing that she's not, her and Katie Taylor aren't similar weights.
Yeah, but it is what it is.
I think Savannah Marshall knocks her out.
You think so?
Yeah. I think she's a far cleaner technician. I think she's very heavy-handed as well.
That'd be an interesting matchup.
It's obviously it's going to be on course, isn't it? Just some time before they fight each other.
Right. You never know.
It needs, women's boxing needs fights like that.
Right.
Because, for example, this fight, Claressa Shields is 10-0. Dicaire is 17-0. 27 fights, 2 knockouts.
Yeah. I mean, that's not surprising. I think everybody knows female fighters, you're not going to watch a female fight expecting a knockout realistically, just based on the history.
That's why people don't watch it.
Well, yeah, I mean, people want bloodshed. They want to see drama,
and it makes no sense because, like we always touch on, the UFC women fight same gloves, 5-minute rounds. They get punched in the head, kneed in the head, kicked in the head. Bare knuckle boxing, they fight.
Yeah,
the same amount of rounds as the guys do, the same amount of time as the guys do, and that's no gloves at all.
Right.
So it needs to change. It needs to change. Like I touched, Sinisha Estrada when she fought Marlon Esparza in Las Vegas for a WBC silver title. That was 3-minute rounds.
Right, and that was a pretty exciting fight. I was entertained by that fight.
Look at Joanna Jędrzejczyk against Wei Li when I was in Vegas for that fight, when she had that huge hematoma from her head.
Oh, yeah. That was ridiculous.
5-minute rounds.
That's wild.
They need to change it. They need to change it because it's just getting ridiculous. Like, you're going to have to watch this fight. It's going to go 12 rounds. It's going to go to the scorecards, and Christian Shields is going to win. So when female fight comes on, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, let's go to the bar because this is going to go 12 rounds.
Maybe.
We'll go and grab a few beers and then we'll come back. We'll catch the last bit of the fight. You know, it's ridiculous. It's the only way the sport's going to grow.
Oh, right. You're right. I mean, hopefully they find some ways to expand the female side of boxing. But this is on pay-per-view. This is the first women's boxing pay-per-view since.
And it's a mainly female card. So this is going to be interesting because Claressa Shields always fights for, you know, she should be paid the same as guys, which is a strange thing to say because not all guys are paid the same.
Right.
But, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what it does on pay-per-view because, you know, she always claims that she's this, you know, outstanding star and she attracts all these eyes. So she's either going to be right and, you know, some of the, you know, HBO and people like that are going to be, you know, wrong for not paying her what she feels she deserves, or she's going to be wrong and she's going to realize that she's been getting overpaid the whole time. So it's going to be, you know, interesting to see what it does. But the only problem is are we going to be able to find out the real numbers? Because, you know, they're never officially released. They're always just rumored. So.
Oh, right. I mean, we'll see. You know, I think if Shields loses, especially if he gets knocked out, which she won't, that'd be huge. But it's also going to be huge if she wins, which everybody expects, whatever the pay-per-view numbers are, or whatever the rumored pay-per-view numbers are, people will be attracted to those regardless. If like you said, if it does well or better than what people expected, like, oh crap, congrats, like that's awesome. You know, she did it. She showed the critics. But if it obviously doesn't perform well, which I think I've seen some reports and some people talk about that it's not really trending well. So I think realistically, it's not going to do well. You know, what's going to happen? I wonder what her guarantee is. You know, like it's like, oh, you know, are you going to get a cut of the pay-per-views or something like that? You know, I mean,
it's priced reasonably, I guess. It's $29.99. I just pulled it up on the Fight TV.
I mean, that's good. But even a female card if it doesn't have like a Ronda Rousey or somebody like an Amanda Nunes or something like that involved in terms of female fighting, you know, people aren't really going to watch. They're not. There's no marquee star to bring people in to buy something or to watch something on the female side of boxing. That's just the truth.
I honestly think Katie Taylor's more popular.
She might be.
She stops the whole of Ireland. Like,
no, yeah.
I remember us talking last year about the eyes that watched her fight when she fought the rematch during fight camp.
Right.
You know, she's just a draw, you know, because people like her. I think because she's so quiet, she's so like timid, and you wouldn't have thought that somebody like her, when she gets into the ring, she's such a beast.
No, right, yeah. I think she's very popular over there in Europe, Ireland, stuff like that. I think that's huge. Her hometown. But over here in the States, New York, she's probably popular because they have a big Irish population. So I'm sure I think there's a lot more people in New York who know her name than know her people like that know her name in like LA or Texas or stuff like that. So, but it is what it is. Hopefully she does well on pay-per-view this weekend. But if the event does do better than expected, be prepared that she's gonna blow that as people's faces for weeks to come. So
and it doesn't look great for her. I know it's the next day, but the Saturday the UFC has a huge card.
Oh yeah,
pay-per-view. So if you're gonna, money's tight during COVID times and stuff like that, I think a lot of people are gonna, pay a little bit extra and get the UFC card on the Saturday than pay $30 to watch a lesser known, female fighters on, Fight TV on the Friday. Obviously, Claressa Shields is a big name, but some of the people on the undercard aren't, well known.
Right. No, you're right. You're right. We'll see. News and notes section of the show. As we mentioned earlier at the beginning of the episode, Triller, your favorite and mine, the newest boxing broadcast company in this world. Triller wins the Teofimo Lopez George Kambosos Jr. purse bid with a $6 million bid. I believe Top Rank bid 2.3 and Matchroom bid 3.5. And then Triller just shows up out of nowhere. Ryan Cavanaugh, who I mentioned earlier, is the CEO of Triller. I think Mike Coppinger of The Athletic had tweeted, or I think a couple people did, but I think I saw from Mike Coppinger, he had tweeted that Ryan Cavanaugh of Triller was present at the bidding process. And I was like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be wild. As soon as I saw that, when he tweeted that, I was like, oh yeah, they're going to win. They're going to win because they're brand new and they need to make a statement. So when they said, wow, like $6 million and Triller wins the purse bid, I was like, well, as soon as they said he was there, I was like, of course they're going to win. So, obviously Lopez is excited. Kambosos is excited because it's the biggest payday he's ever gotten. He's probably bigger than he thought he was going to get. Same thing for Lopez. Like we talked about earlier, this only strains the relationship between Top Rank and Teofimo Lopez now, especially with Bob Arum's past comments about that Lopez isn't really worth X amount of dollars at the moment. This fight isn't worth an X amount of dollars at the moment. And then Lopez keeps tweeting stuff or posting stuff on social media saying, the goal is to be his own boss, something like that. Pretty much saying like he wants to be on his own. He wants to be like a Canelo or stuff like that, Floyd Mayweather. Within the next two fights, he put the next 1 or 2 fights, I will be a free agent. And this was on the Akim Barak show on Sirius XM, and said he was going to start takeover promotions and just do a Canelo. And if you look at his bio, when I saw it not long after Triller won the bid, if you looked at his bio, and I haven't looked at it since, his bio said he changed it from part of Top Rank Promotions or signed to Top Rank Promotion. Now he said like signed to Takeover Promotions or something like that. He changed it. Either it's the biggest troll move right now, or he's just, maybe he's just pissed off. Maybe I wonder how much it is to buy out his contract. Cause I would think that his contract with Top Rank right now, that they have him locked up for a couple of years. Yeah. I would think. So, I would think it would be over $1 million to buy out his contract. I would think realistically, but I don't know. It'll be interesting because we're starting to see this more and more where, like in soccer, where the players have the power, and it's turned into this in boxing where the boxers are having the power. Look at Mikey Garcia, left Top Rank. Floyd Mayweather bought himself out famously out of Top Rank. It looks like Teofimo Lopez is, going to try and either buy himself out, or he's, started saying that, stuff's been said where he believes he can get out of his contract. I think it's just the timing of it, though. Like if Triller wasn't here, that wouldn't have happened. Matchroom probably and DAZN probably would have got it, but they may get him. Yeah, maybe. I feel like, that Eddie Hearn has a way with words, and he probably could get him. He's talked to them. There was video of them talking to them in the last fight a couple months ago or something like that. And Teofimo Lopez Sr. was like, we want $10 million. And Eddie Hearn was like, okay. And then they were just like, you can make that happen? He was like, yeah. And then Eddie Hearn was about to walk away. He's like, the problem is, he was like, your promoter won't let you. And then Teofimo Lopez Sr. was just like, it's because you're not talking to me. You're talking to the wrong people. Talk to me. You have to reach out to me. Pretty much saying like, you got to talk to me and I'll make it happen. Don't talk to them. So, I mean, who knows? But it's just the perfect storm for somebody like Teofimo Lopez. Triller is involved, and nobody knew if they were really going to get involved in boxing like this. Nobody knew. Everybody thought, oh, this could be like a celebrity thing or kind of like more of like a spectacle than anything. And when, like I said, when Ryan Kavanaugh showed up at the bidding process, everybody was like, holy shit. Like if they want to make a big splash in the boxing world, they just did it. So, it was a perfect storm for Teofimo Lopez, because if not, it looks like DAZN and Matchroom would have won the bid and he would have fought on DAZN.
Do you think it's a bad look for Teofimo Lopez though? Because he didn't come
in a way, yeah.
With a big amateur. He didn't get selected by the US. He ended up fighting for who did he fight for? Who's it? He's Honduras.
Honduras, yeah.
Top Rank gave him everything. They put him where he was. They helped him. They put him in, fights that were well selected from inside.
Right.
And probably overpaid him during that time. And now when it gets to those bigger fights where Top Rank can, kind of gather back some of the money that they may have overpaid him whilst he was coming up.
Right.
He's gonna fly the nest and go elsewhere.
Right. I mean, yeah, in a sense, yeah. But it's not like this is the first time it's happened. Like we mentioned, Mikey Garcia, Floyd, Oscar. It's happened before, and it's going to keep happening. Canelo, just with Golden Boy and all that stuff. My thing is that, yeah, it looks bad. Some people might look at it like it's bad. Some people might look at it like, yeah, he deserves to get paid, and he took the risk, and it worked out. So it just depends on how you look at it, whichever side of the coin you want to look at it from. But my thing is like, look, man, he's marketable. He has a mouth. He talks. He posts on social media. Like, he talks a lot of shit. He does this, he does that. And he's obviously got talent. He's a unified champion at 135. If he can keep doing that and keep winning and fighting the best guys and beating them, then it's only going to keep going up for him. That's it. But if he fights somebody and gets knocked out or loses handily, then everybody's going to be like, well, that's kind of what he gets for being self-centered and thinking the world owed him everything, So it's going to be very interesting to see the trajectory, but it could work out. The guy's talented, obviously. But let's just see how it goes. And after Kambosos, like, especially if he beats him handily, he needs to fight like a Devin Haney. He needs to fight even a Ryan Garcia, even though he'd smoke Ryan Garcia, but fight a Tank Davis or, something like that.
I mean, I always thought that he would, fight Kambosos. He'd then step up to 140, fight the winner of Ramierez and Josh Taylor.
I can see that.
But if he does that to Top Rank,
they're not going to give him that shot.
Yeah, Ramierez and obviously Josh Taylor are both Top Rank fighters.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think if that was his original plan, unless he gets signed or he starts working with Eddie Hearn offers a ton of money to Top Rank, like, hey, I'm willing to pay you this for this fight. And Top Rank is going to be like, you know what? We got to do it. Like the Jose Ramirez Maurice Hooker fight. Top Rank pretty much said like, yeah, he's like, we sent Jose Ramirez to DAZN because Eddie Hearn he offered a lot of money, so it was like, we couldn't say no to it. So obviously it could happen, but it would take the checkbook would have to be pulled out for Eddie Hearn and DAZN. But you're right though. Top Rank is going to do everything they can to raise that price if Lopez actually leaves them and wants to fight Josh Taylor or Jose Ramirez. And then at that point, maybe Lopez is going to be complaining, oh, they don't want to fight me. Top Rank is scared. They don't want they don't want to let their guy face me because they know I'll whoop their ass or something like that. I can see it now, him tweeting that stuff. But I mean, from a promoter standpoint, wouldn't you kind of do the same? Like, man, kid, you were talking all this crap about me and about my company, and you left us. Like, why are we going to share our profits with you and give you a chance at history with one of our guys? I mean, that's just the nature of the game. That's what happens. There's a ton of, there's politics everywhere, especially today. But there's been a consistent amount of politics in the sport of boxing. And that's your example right there. So I don't know, man. I don't know. But
I do wonder if Bob Arum is just hard to work with, because all the ones that spring to mind that have bought all their contracts or sat on the shelf or had real big issues with promoters, it's always Bob.
Yeah, but he also has the biggest history, though.
Yeah, good point, yeah.
So, yeah, he's been around the longest. So he has the biggest resume. So he has the most encounters, instances, fighters. So it's not really surprising. But it's true, though. That's what happens. And I mean, at the end of the day, Bob Arum is an attorney. He's a lawyer. So, and now that he's getting older, like I said, I think he just doesn't care. He's like, man, I don't care. He's like, he'll say it out loud. He's like, it's not worth it. He talked crap about Terrence Crawford, Teofimo Lopez. He literally does not care anymore. He doesn't, because he's just like, he's almost 90 years old. He doesn't care. He's just like, yeah. He's like, if they want to leave me, leave me. He's already said that he's open to sell Top Rank if for the right price. Mm-hmm. So like, what else does that tell you? But I don't know, man.
Fair play to Teofimo Lopez.
It worked.
Get in, get out, make as much money as you can. And what's that statistic? Is it only 1% of boxers who retire are set for life?
Yeah. So it's working. He's set for life now, assuming he's okay with his money. So, but we'll see. Also, news and notes. Zurdo Ramierez signs a multi-fight deal with Golden Boy Promotions. Probably the most significant signing of Golden Boy Promotions tenure, at least the last couple of years. Wouldn't you say? I mean, who was the last decent, biggest name that they've signed before this?
Yeah, in terms of actually like a ready-made product, yeah, I would say that's the biggest signing they've had for
yeah. I mean, I was kind of happy to see it because obviously we know that Golden Boy out of all the major promoters is probably the bottom of the totem pole at the moment, especially since they lost Canelo. So I was happy to see this. I was like, hey, that's something. That's something going upward.
He needs a rocket up his backside to get something done. He's been sitting around fighting nobodies and stuff like that, and building up a hefty resume of journeymen and people that are kind of past it. So if he's going to earn any money, now's the time. Right.
I mean, maybe put him against Bivol, 175 pounds on DAZN.
What, you want to retire him?
Well, I mean, why is he signing with Golden Boy and DAZN, essentially? Who else? Bivol has a title at 175 pounds. Sergey Kovalev is there. I mean, Bivol's the man right now under the DAZN banner at 175 pounds.
I think personally, unless Ramierez has been very active away from the boxing scene, I think he's done. I think against most of the bigger names, I don't see him coming out on top against any of them.
Yeah, I agree. I think Bivol is obviously the favorite, would be the favorite, but
Kovalev, I think, beats him. Callum Johnson, I think, beats him.
I don't think Kovalev beats him. I don't.
I think if he sat and boxed like he did in the second fight against Alvarez, and I think he did. I think he would. But we may have seen the last of, maybe.
Or maybe Alvarez. Maybe Alvarez, Sullivan Barrera, something like that. But the goal for Ramierez, now that he's essentially associated with DAZN, is to fight Bivol for that world title at 175 pounds. Regardless if he might be the underdog, that should be the goal.
He's been so inactive, and he's literally even when he was active, he wasn't fighting the bigger names. So it's all that time off, all that time fighting mediocre opponents to then just come back and jump in at a grade A opponent. He may be able to do it, but that's it's kind of a very big leap. You kind of want to go D level, C level, B level.
No, right,
A level,
right.
and then fight the elite.
Yeah.
But
No, you're right. But like, I think maybe 1 to 2 fights under Golden Boy, and then
be like 50-0.
Right. But if you're right though, like, it's the inactivity, COVID and everything. At least one fight with like a decent, maybe, like, look at Andre Ward. When Andre Ward, before he fought Kovalev, he fought, I think, Sullivan Barrera at 175 pounds. And then I think he fought Kovalev, right? I think he did. I think that's what happened. So,
I mean, he definitely does need like a comeback fight, because his last one was the one that obviously in Mexico that we promoted on our social media handles.
On Fight TV. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think it's a waste of a deal if the goal isn't to fight somebody, pretty much Bivol, who has a world title and fights under DAZN.
Beck the Bully.
Even him. But Bivol has the world title. That's the goal, is for him to get a piece of the 175-pound world title picture. But who knows? But it's cool to see, as a boxing fan, that Golden Boy Promotions signed somebody, and it's the biggest, well-made name at this point that they've had in quite a few years. So,
interesting to see what the deal's worth, because we heard the rumors about the deals that he was turning down at Top Rank, and he was getting paid some good money. So it'd be interesting to see what Golden Boy have had a handshake on. Right. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but who knows? Also recently announced, Andy Ruiz Jr., the Destroyer, is officially announced to fight the Nightmare, Chris Arreola. I don't know if it's official, like from PBC and stuff like that, but it's been reported on April 24th and this is a kicker, on Fox pay-per-view. Huh. You talk about Claressa Shields and her fight this Friday. How is that performing in terms of that aspect? How is this going to perform? Well, Mike Coppinger put out today, because somebody asked if there was any rumors of who was going to be on the undercard. He said that he'd heard that they were going to make it a mainly like Mexican or Hispanic card all the way through. I think trying to play on how big of fans the Hispanic community are, hoping that they'll buy that because of, I would assume, obviously, Andy Ruiz Jr. being the first ever Mexican heavyweight, hoping that, people would just jump on that because it's his kind of...
That's very smart, marketing-wise, especially out here in the Southern California area or even Texas and stuff like that. That's a very smart play, We'll see how it goes. I actually think this is a pretty decent matchup.
You probably see that people like the Balderas brothers on the undercard, since it's a PBC card.
Right.
Lindolfo Delgado.
Right.
People like that.
I actually think this is a pretty decent matchup. I think obviously Ruiz is the favorite, but based on Arreola's last fight, even though it was quite a while ago now, when he fought Kaunaki.
Is he still with Guzin?
I don't know. That's a good question. That's a very good question. He might be, because I think he lives in the Valley out here in LA. But I mean, they broke the record for most punches thrown in a heavyweight title fight over there in New York. And Arreola still, even though he lost, he still showed, at least in that fight, that he's got the stamina. He can give you some good work. Like it's gonna be a pretty long night if he can keep that energy up, regardless. So I don't know, man. I think just because I'm hoping that because it's two Mexican fighters, especially two heavyweights and stuff like that, I'm hoping it produces something. I'm hoping. And they both know, especially Arreola, since he's been in the game a lot longer, I think they both know, like, hey, man, a lot of the Hispanic fans, the Mexican fans expect a fight. Yeah. So I hope it produces some entertainment. I really do. I really wonder what it's going to be priced at. I would think it'd be priced at maybe $49.99. I would think anything higher than that is pretty stupid. But you never know. It could be like at $79, $69. You never know. But I think $49.99 or below, I think $50 is the ceiling. But we'll see. Also, I'm sure some listeners are going to be pretty pissed off at us talking about this. But your favorite of mine, Jake Paul, the YouTuber, versus Ben Askren, the former UFC fighter. And then Regis Prograis is reportedly set to face Ivan Redkach on the upcoming Triller pay-per-view. I don't know if they've announced a date or not. And then the card will also feature Antonio Tarver and Frank Mir. Frank Mir is obviously a former UFC. I don't know if he's a former UFC heavyweight champion or he was former UFC heavyweight for sure. He also, I think he gave Brock Lesnar the first professional loss of his UFC career. Actually, there it is. April 17th, Triller pay-per-view.
Not far. 6 weeks.
No, yeah. It's right around the corner. Just like we talked about earlier, Triller's in the game, man. Regis Prograis on this card against Ivan Redkach.
Great fight. Great fight.
Like, that's, that Triller's showing that they want to be in the boxing game. They are.
That's not going 12 rounds. That's a great fight. Yeah.
So they're showing that they want to be in the boxing game. I know some people would be pissed off, like, oh, these YouTubers are now involved, and we don't want these boxing events to be like celebrity events and stuff like that. But like, honestly, like, I'm okay with it. I might be in the minority, maybe. I'm not sure. I could be in the majority. I'm okay with it if they kind of include these real fights like this. I'm cool with it, man, because not only are these fights worth it to watch, but also it invites the casual fan to tune in because, like, oh, I want to see Mike Tyson, or I want to see Jake Paul, or I want to see this and that. And then they see these guys like Regis Prograis and stuff like that, who's been on the show before. We interviewed him at StubHub out here in Carson, California. And they see these fighters like Regis Prograis and Ivan Redkach, and they see, oh, wow, these guys are cool. And like, oh, let me go on YouTube and watch some boxing highlights. Let me go into Zone or Showtime or Fox or PBC. It grows the sport, and it gets these guys paid more and stuff like that. So I'm cool with it, man. Like, whatever. It is what it is.
Triller is clever though, because they put YouTube people on there who are known to, all the younger demographic. So that's one audience. And then they'll get me and you tuning in because we want to see Regis Prograis and Ivan Redkach.
Right.
And then they'll stick nostalgia on there. So that you get like a Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield. So that's another older demographic. And then they also decide to stick in there, like they did on the first one, music. So they have live concerts. So that's another type of people that are going to tune in, maybe just to catch, the
event.
The event
itself.
Yeah. And then they get like, people like Snoop Dogg, stuff like that. So people tune in because he's funny. So you get so many people tuning in, so many different demographics, different age groups and stuff like that. It's very clever. Very clever. Oh, yeah. That's why they attract, like, the first show, I believe, was like 1.6 million, maybe 1.8 million after the final count overall. So it's going to be funny to see, what kind of, numbers they're going to attract, because especially for the Teofimo card in, like May, they're going to, just that fight alone, without the, all the undercard, probably Evander Holyfield and Tyson are going to obviously get a big purse. Whatever concert they decide to put on is going to get paid. They're going to need a hell of a lot of people tuning in to have that card in May make any kind of profit.
No, right. I mean, we'll see. But I think it's a very interesting spin and take on the boxing business as a whole. Like you said, I think it's very clever to include different fights and little events on the totality of the event to appeal to different generations of fans, YouTubers, the nostalgia, the hardcore boxing fans. They're kind of hitting all the markets that they need to. And it's like, hey, man, that's very clever. From a business perspective, you got to give them their props. So we'll see. We'll see. But Triller's in the game. Let's see how they pan out as we move forward. But it looks like they're going to be here for quite a bit. So we'll see how that goes. As we wrap up here, Mike, traditionally, go ahead and let our fans know where they can find us and follow us.
You can find us at The Last Round 12 on Instagram and Twitter. And obviously, be sure to tune in next week. We'll be reviewing all the fights that we talked about and looking forward to David Benavidez against Ronald Eris. Obviously, the big one, probably the biggest or second biggest fight of the year so far, Juan Francisco Estrada against Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez. So we're looking forward to previewing that. We might have to get Dougie on.
Definitely. It's going to be an exciting fight. Those smaller weight classes usually produce some pretty some pretty cool fireworks. So once again, for my co-host, Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is the last round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is the Last Round Podcast.